As I said, you said you're 50, I'm 55. You look back, my kids are all grown. I have this amazing, fortunate life, but what would I give to have more opportunity to be on this earth, right?
Yes.
It sounds cliche. It sounds silly. Everybody says a version of that, but life is what happens while you're making other plans.
Hey, what's up? It's Michael Yo. Welcome to the Yo Show. I'm so excited to have him here. I met him at one of my stand-up comedy shows. He came with a big group of people, and what I love, his personality, first of all, I didn't even know what you did, Ivan. I had no idea what you did. All I know is I asked a couple friends, I'm like, who's that guy? He has a magnetic personality. He's a great guy. And then they told me about you. I was like, I got to have him on the podcast. First of all, how much money in real estate do you think you've sold in just your career?
Oh, God.
I've heard 2 billion, 1 billion, 3 billion. I've heard all types of billion numbers.
It's billions and billions and billions. It's more than two. But before I say that, I just got to tell you, buddy, what a treat to be here. The same thing about you. I mean, you and I have been connected through a friend for a while, and if it wasn't for that connection, we wouldn't be here. So I appreciate being on your show. The money that I've made and the volume that I've done has been a tribute not just to me, but I got the right people. And you know what it's like when you have a company, you got to have the right people, because you have the wrong people and money doesn't even matter and everything falls apart. So the volume of the business that I do about between 700 and 750 million a year in volume. And that sounds like that's my money, but it's not. That's 750 million dollars worth of houses. When you talk about volume, it's like if you add up all the $1 million homes, those homes themselves equal 750 million for the year. And so that's how that works.
And why I have you on the show is because, we like this to be an inspirational pod. And these people have seen my journey from the start of comedy till now. And it's kind of like this gives people like a different roadmap. But I think it all comes down to one thing, no matter what career choice you make, you got to be hungry and you got to make sacrifices. What big sacrifices did you make at the beginning of your career to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, great question. There is no success without a journey.
Yeah.
And my journey, there have been many costs. But the one thing that I didn't lose and that I'm proud of is, we only have, I learned early on from a mentor of mine that you have one chance for a first impression. There really is. Sure, there's grays of right and wrong. There's really a right and a wrong way to be. And if you take the money out of it and just look at what the right decision is, that's kind of the way I've led my life and the way I've led my business. The sacrifices that I made when I first started, I worked 24/7, just nonstop. And when you're married, which I was at the time, and you have small children.
How young were you when you got married?
I was 25.
25 and got
I'm 55
married.
now.
Okay, so 25. Where were you in your business career? Were you making money? Were you not making money? Were you broke?
Dude, for the longest time, I had nothing. Even when people thought I had money, I had nothing for the longest time. And it is a journey, and it's a process, and there are all these people that you think are giving you advice and that there is a right way to do something. And then you realize, hey, listen, there's a right way for them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way for me. And so my journey was kind of learning to trust myself and to go through the failures and realize what I do want, what I don't want, what I'm proud of. And oftentimes it wasn't the sale. It was how I handled a situation, how I handled a client, how I handled another agent or whatever it was. And I realized, and I know I'm probably getting ahead because I can sense the direction we're going here.
Yeah.
But I realized that real estate, as much as I thought I loved real estate, that's not what I loved. I loved the win. I love success, and success doesn't equate to money for me. Success, it's a big part of it,
of course,
but you can't lose yourself in the process.
When you talked about failures, you talked about wins. What was your first win as a young? What was your first sale? I guess a different way to phrase it. What was your first win / sale? Maybe your first sale was a win. What was your first big win to you?
Growing up, I had a really powerful male role model in my dad. He was just a conqueror. There was no such thing as defeat. There was no such thing as a no. You just overcome and succeed. And so I lived, without knowing it, I lived a little bit in that shadow. So the first time I actually had as you said, my first sale, a part of me realized, you know what, I can do this. These aren't my dad's friends that are doing it.
Did you ever think you couldn't though?
Double-edged sword, meaning I had this belief that no matter what, I'm going to be successful.
Gotcha.
Inwardly, I had no clue how it was going to happen. My grades were horrible. I had no discipline. So all the things that you think you'd need for success, I didn't have. And I had some kind of an inferiority complex. One of my greatest sales, and I've sold some of the most beautiful homes in the country, actually. I'm really, really lucky. But one of my most amazing sales moments was when I first moved to Las Vegas. And I was referred to a client, and the client calls me up and says, Ivan, we've never met. My wife and I we lost a home of our dreams. We were supposed to buy it. It didn't happen. And he said to me, my wife's in tears. Do you have anything? And just then he told me what he was looking for. It was a $300,000 house, which back then, coming from Tucson before, $300,000 is pretty big, right?
That's a solid house.
Yeah. I'm dealing with $80,000, $100,000 homes in Tucson at the time. And he turned to me, he goes, do you have anything? I said, Dan, I got to tell you something. I said, I just left the house. I said, I walked into the house and it just spoke to me. I said, you need to come see this house. He turned his car around. He was heading back to California. He walks into the house. He says, buy it. I said, even without your wife seeing it? He goes, buy it right now. He goes, I'm going to fly my wife in tomorrow. So they buy it. The wife flies in the next day. She is not she's not flowery. She's not like one of these warm, fuzzy people.
Yeah.
And she walks in, she looks around, dead silence. And we got the candles lit, everything, everything is good to go. And she walks in and she looks around. She's quiet. I'm thinking, oh crap. She's going to turn around and she's going to say something negative. She turned around and there's tears coming down her cheeks. And it's like, I'll never forget that. Yeah. That was 25 years ago. I'm 55 now. Almost half my life ago. All these sales that I've done, I'll never forget that.
That's amazing. What's your biggest failure? Well, young in your career, a big failure.
Oh, dude, so many.
Is there one that stands out?
The biggest thing, and I'm gonna kind of go back to, is just not trusting myself. So I had a business partner, and when I came to Las Vegas to work in the luxury market, I had a business partner. Her name was Florence Shapiro.
Yes, of course, legendary.
She she'd earned it. She was classy. She was strong. She had character. All the things that you want.
Every big person not to cut you off, but every big person that came through Las Vegas and bought something, if it was a big project or expensive house, it went through Florence.
100%. And I was very lucky to have her in my life. So I came to work for her for the first 5 years. And then after that, she approached me with a partnership, and we grew our business. When she passed, and I'm trying to remember your question. Yes, my biggest failure?
Yes.
When she passed, which was 2017, in that moment, I realized that I did not know how to run a company, and that I was scared of my own shadow, and that I'd been living within her shadow. And I had to pretend like I knew how to run a company. I could sell houses, but I had no concept on how to run a business at all. And for the first 6 months after her passing, I just pretended, and the company started spiraling. Everything, people that knew, and outwardly nobody knew, but the company started spiraling.
When you say spiraling, what does that mean? Because we're not in the real estate, or the people, a lot of our audience, what does spiraling mean? It doesn't mean not selling, the money's going down, people are very unhappy, clients. What does that mean in your world?
In real estate, the name of the game is taking listings. Listings where you put a sign out in front of somebody's home.
Okay.
Working with buyers is awesome too. We're great at that. But buyers come from, if you don't have homes to sell, the buyers aren't attracted to you. I was scared to take listings. So this is 2017, great career up until then. And so she passes, and I'm sitting there thinking, I got to get over this. So I go on appointment after appointment after appointment, and I'd fail. And it wasn't until I started asking the question, I'd call, if you were the client, I'd call you up the next day, say, Michael, hey, just checking in. I wanted to see what you felt and when we can get started. And it's always the same thing. Ivan, God, you were great, but we just ended up working with Steve. We'll use a name, I mean. We ended up deciding to go with Steve.
So when you say you weren't getting listings, you were actually not not doing well enough in the room with the client to get the listing.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct.
Okay. And you're the head guy now.
Yeah. There was no skill set. There was no skill set. And what I learned to do is to ask questions. I'd say, Michael, Michael, Steve's a great agent. You're going to do great with him because we always talk positively about people. And then I'd say, but do me a favor. I said, I felt like you and I really connected. And Michael would say, of course. Oh, we loved you, Ivan. Hopefully you'll bring the buyer. And then I'd say, what was the one thing that made you choose Steve over me? And always they'd say, oh, no, it was great. We've been working with Steve for a while in the past. And I said, okay, but if there were to be one thing, one level deeper, right? If there were to be one thing, what would it be? And every time they'd say it. Ivan, to be honest, if you really want to know, and then they'd give me, and so I knew how to solve for it next time I went on an appointment. So slowly I started refining my skills on the listing side because I'd only been working with buyers. At the time I was with Berkshire Hathaway, and the CEO of the franchise sat with me, said, Ivan, I'm going to teach you how to be a CEO.
Hey, what's up? It's Michael Yo. This week coming up, March 27th, 28th, and 29th, New York City. Come on out, the Gramercy. The Park Theater in Minneapolis will be there on the 28th, and Chicago, the Den, on the 29th. Man, this is a huge week for me and Rudy. Let's do this. MichaelYo.com for your tickets. Come on out. Was there a theme to everybody's feedback about you? Did it all match? Because I'll give you an example. When I would break up with a girlfriend, they would always be like, you're selfish. Like everyone, you're so selfish, even though I broke up with them. So I had to learn how to deal, because it was a common theme. Selfish. So I go, let me work on myself, on the selfish part. Was there a common theme when you were calling these people asking that matched with everybody?
There was one. And the common theme ended up being that they couldn't argue results, because we as a company, as a team, and me at the time had the best results in the city. I mean, we had the highest sales prices, that records. We just had the best results, best stats. What ultimately ended up happening is someone that was newer, or an individual, would come in and say, listen, when you list with Ivan, you don't get Ivan, or Ivan's too busy, or something along those lines. They'd make stuff up in essence. So I would explain to them, I'd start with the story next time I met with my next client. And the story is what happens in a scenario where an individual agent or a small team handles your transaction versus when you're working with somebody that's got all the systems in place and knows how to handle it, and what the detriment is. And the story revolved around a scenario that I had, a personal experience, where I had a client flying in from LA. I went to go pick up the client. I had 10 homes to show them. They were going to buy that day. And the one home that they wanted to buy, they couldn't get in because the sole agent, or the agent with the small team, was out or too busy, or couldn't, there was nobody to cover for that agent. And no matter how much I pleaded, leave the door open, let me show it, this guy wants to buy your house. No matter what I said, they couldn't get in. And so I'll say to you, being the seller, I said, Michael, you have my word that'll never happen when you list your home with me. I'll make sure that whether it's me or one of my top agents, your home will not be looked over.
That's kind of like you're answering the problem before they bring it up.
Yeah.
It's kind of what Eminem did in 8 Mile. He gave everybody every negative thing in his rap before. So then when there was time for them to make fun of him, he already said everything.
Yeah, trust me, as a former fat kid, you really got to get to the punch before they do. Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Did you start when you were first started selling homes? Were you selling homes on a lower level compared to what you are? So if that's the case, what is the difference between selling to somebody to a home that they can have multiple dream homes compared to somebody who has to buy a home because that's the only home that they can afford?
It's a great question. The reality is there's a mental block among agents. And the mental block is, as soon as it's 1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, whatever the number is, 20 million, I'm not qualified to do it. It's that fear factor. It's the same person. That person most likely started out like everybody else. And they just grew into it. So the first thing is that the agent needs to overcome their own fears, like I did, overcome their own fears. The next thing is that sometimes people that don't have a lot of money, I guess if there were to be some difference, they get hung up in the little things. And that'd be the only difference.
And what's the little things in your industry?
Little things could be arguing over pennies.
Yeah.
realize, when you're missing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Home inspection, where, the home is going to be fine for 99.999% of all transactions. But all of a sudden they have to be right on this one finite point, which means nothing. It's change the garbage disposal. It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's the need to win in a scenario where maybe somebody with money that's looking at a bigger picture just says, listen, let's just ask for a credit and we'll handle the rest, or vice versa.
I can understand that, because during the pandemic, we were trying to sell our house in LA. And my wife is more of a stickler. A stickler. She hates when people win over her. Like, she will not be beat, right? So we're in the middle of the pandemic. We have a buyer for our house. And in that neighborhood, Studio City, it sells really fast. But the problem is, even we were like 5 houses down from a freeway. So anybody that came, they would say, oh, I hear the freeway. I hear the freeway. And we're like, okay. But finally somebody wanted to buy. But we had a air conditioning unit on the roof, on top of the roof. And they go, the only way we're going to buy this is if y'all pay for moving it to the bottom. Now, this is a very expensive house. My wife is like, no way. You pay for that? You're buying the house? I go, babe, you're going to stop a sale of a house for $8,000?
Yeah.
And she go, we can't get beat on this point. But that I can understand. And I go, no, do it. We'll put it down. It was $8,000. And we don't even pay. It's in the transaction. You just take it off the price. It's not like you're coming out with the money saying, here you go. It's in the transaction. It's in the doc. So I can understand where people, because it almost becomes competitive with somebody else you don't know over little things that don't matter. Yeah.
And it does happen as well with people with money, but not as often.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're able to overcome that and look past it.
Yeah. I've noticed, and this isn't a male or female thing, but I have noticed that usually, because I've sold 3 houses now, and my last one before I moved to Las Vegas, we were in a back and forth about the color of the screws that we use for the wall sockets. You know what I mean? Like the white, because there was because the faces were white, but the screw heads were beige. And she was asking that we went through and inspected all of them and had them changed. And then finally there was a back and forth, and her husband was like, do you really want to have me call another man in his 40s and ask him to change out? These are 72 cents at the Home Depot. Why are we? And plus, what is your time worth? You really want to mentally, you want to sit and think about this? We'll just go to Home Depot. We'll pick out all new faces and we'll change them ourselves.
And you're 100% right. And those little things, last point on this, on my end anyway, unless you want to discuss it more. Recently, I'm gonna contradict myself. Recently, I had a $17.5 million sale. I represented the buyer, and somebody in my company represented the seller. It was great. The buyer was unbelievable, and detailed is fine. When you're spending that kind of money, you gotta make sure everything's working. But this person was to the color of the screws on a home like that, and they wanted to. They felt like they had the control the whole way through. And ultimately at the end, the seller said, you know what? I don't closing with this person would be more uncomfortable to me because they're going to come after me after the closing. Let's just kill it. And so we ended up not selling to him.
Wow.
Really?
Unreal.
Wow.
When you lose trust and faith.
Yeah.
Because again, it's more than the money.
Now, did it have anything to do with you or the agent that was working with you? Did that fall on you or the person actually, the seller or the buyer?
So I represented the seller. And
did all the blame fall on the seller then? Or was it the buyer?
It was 100% the buyer.
The buyer wasn't.
Anything
Okay.
that truly was an issue, the seller was the most generous, kind. There was a slight hairline crack in one of the counters. He replaced the whole counter in his kitchen. The whole counter in his kitchen because of a slight hairline crack.
Wow.
This guy was talking about grout. This guy was talking about grout in the wall outside surrounding his house. He was talking about hairline cracks in the concrete on the stairs as you're approaching the house. He was talking about, just crazy things.
And then that person knows, even if he buys it, he's not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And then they're going to call you, and then they're going to, yeah, that's a mess.
Yeah.
You don't want to deal with people like that.
Never. And that's a really, thank God, I believe we get to choose the people we interact with in life. life is too short.
Yes.
Life is too short. And I'm very fortunate that when somebody isn't a fit, and not everybody is, that they just don't become a part of my world.
2 things you could give your best advice on if you're getting into real estate today.
I can tell you that so many people try and emulate somebody else. There's real estate television shows which are fun to watch and look at, and obviously drama and not necessarily real.
You're talking about the ones that sell houses, like Sunset Strip and things like that.
Exactly. And I know most of those guys, and they're great. They got great businesses. But a lot of what you see isn't real. It's
Of
staged.
course.
And so there's a perception of what life is like. You have to drive the fancy car. You have to wear the suit. You have to speak a certain way and do certain things. I would say that you have to be, number one is to be authentic. You just got to be real. Don't ever compromise your integrity. And when I say that, it's because I feel like, and I can't define a time when it happened, but I know there was a time where I made a poor choice in business at some point. And I know that feeling afterward, and I never wanted that feeling again. And so do the right thing. I mean, it's basic common sense. Be real, be authentic. Don't compromise don't sell your soul for the money, because the money means nothing when you get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like the first time you get a new car that you've been waiting for. It's the greatest thing in the whole world. And a week later, you still like it, but it's not quite the same as that first day. A month later, it's like,
You don't even look back at it.
yeah.
I remember when you first get a car, you look back at it every time you walk away. And then after a couple months, you don't even look back at it.
McDonald's wrappers in there. It's like, whatever. Yeah.
But beforehand, it's the most important thing.
Yeah.
It's your focus. And one of my favorite quotes is that life is what happens while you're making other plans, right? I mean, you look back, as I said, you said you're 50, I'm 55. You look back, my kids are all grown. You know, I have this amazing, fortunate life, but what would I give to have more opportunity to be on this earth, right?
Yes.
It sounds cliche, it sounds silly. Everybody says a version of that, but life is what happens while you're making other plans. It just does. The one thing I wish I would have done earlier, and I don't know how you do it earlier, is believed in myself. It took years of me realizing that I was faking it. I wasn't being true to myself. So number one is be authentic.
Yeah.
Number two is don't buy into what everybody else says about you or about what you're looking to accomplish or about life in general. I mean, my dad gave me the best bit of advice. And I'll make it quick because my stomach's growling and it's probably picking up on my whatever. But one of the best bits of advice he gave me, it was a parent-teacher conference. I already told you I was not a good student.
Yeah.
This was elementary school, right? So it's the real deal.
Oh, they knew you weren't a good student at the beginning.
They knew, no, I knew I wasn't a good student. And there was this, my dad was very paternal. He was very strong, very, very paternal. And so he's taking me to my parent-teacher conference and I get out of the car. He goes, no, you sit back in the car. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm going to go talk to your teacher without you. Okay, Dad. I sit in the car and I'm dying. I'm freaking dying because I know.
Because he kept the windows up.
Oh,
it
yeah.
was hot outside and you were in bed.
106.
So I literally
You were literally dying.
Yeah. So I wait for him to come back 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. He comes back. I'm thinking, what's going to happen? He gets in the car. He says, Ivan, he goes, your teacher loves you. I'm like, yeah, he's a great teacher. I love my teacher. He said, but there's one kid that you're hanging out with that's maybe not such a good kid. I knew exactly who he was. I'd go and buy those Atari video games off of him. The ones that used to cost $10, I get for like 50 cents.
Yeah.
So they're they're authentic Atari video games that he purchased. And now he's selling. He obviously stole them.
Yeah.
And in my head, I knew it. I just wouldn't admit it to myself. And he said to me, he goes, Ivan, he goes, be very careful who you hang out with in life. He goes, you rub up against a stain rub up against a stain long enough, you're going to get a mark on your shirt.
Yes.
And I never spoke to the kid again.
Nice.
And that's be careful who you associate with.
Because they are your brand.
They are your brand, your personal brand.
You already have, you started your own company, IS Luxury. You're already successful. And to a lot of people, you have everything. I mean, what is the ultimate goal? Because to me, you're probably the biggest person in Las Vegas. What's the goal? Like, since you've already kind of achieved it, is it, like, what is it to you?
My goal has become impacting more people in a positive way through real estate and through philanthropy. My goal has become, and giving back, part of my passion is winning. And that means that there's always something new and exciting that I can tackle or improve on. So I love doing that. I love sharing what I've learned with people that want to hear and want to learn and want to grow. And there's a bunch of people that do. And I'm expanding. I opened up a Newport end of last year. I'll be in Park City a year from now.
That's exploding. I mean, Park City is ridiculous. Is there any more room to build there, though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep. But even if they don't build, which there's plenty of room to build, if you see the expansion that's going on in Park City right now, in Deer Valley, and all the new resorts and the Four Seasons and the things that are happening and the new Deer Valley that's expanding, the values and the pricing is going through the roof. And the reason I picked those two locations for me is in my luxury market, that's where my clients go to vacation. That's where my clients have second homes. And so it's a way for me to control it for my sellers. If I have the listings in Las Vegas, or if I have listings in Newport, or if I have listings in Park City, wherever those listings are, I now have two other markets where I can control buyers and bring them to those clients' homes.
And what does, in your term luxury, what price range is luxury?
God, somebody just asked me that. It's a great question. I actually don't even want to say it because it's embarrassing. I feel a little bougie and
okay.
And I mean, I will say,
but people
I will say,
but they understand.
I got to give you the preface.
Yeah,
I got to
please.
give you the humble first, and then I'll go out and lance you with it. Honestly, $3.5 million and above.
Okay,
but luxury is more than price. Luxury is lifestyle, amenities, finishes. Luxury is service, which gives you time. Time is the greatest asset that we all have and that people have in the luxury market. Whatever people, I've seen $1 million, seen $1.5 million to $2 million homes where the interior finishes are so exceptional. Any luxury person that understands luxury and finishes would buy it just because of that. But if it's just a price point, I'd say 3.5 and up. And it used to be $1 million and up, and then it used to be 700,000 and up. As we go back.
So the more successful you get, of course, the price range moves up. It's like anybody, like with comedy. The more successful I am, the higher you got to pay me to even show up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Ivan, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome.
What a treat for me, you guys. Thank you.
I love this, and I wanted to get you on. Hopefully, you people watching, you got some life lessons. And the thing is, don't let anybody tell you can't accomplish anything, because you can. You just got to work hard and go after it. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. We'll see you next time on the Yo Show. Make sure you like, subscribe, and all that cool stuff. Later.